Today, we're doing a political news roundup. We're talking about how the city handled the snowstorm and the cleanup. Plus, we talk about the plan to close 20 schools in the city. And city council members are proposing legislation to restrict cooperation with ICE and ban those agents from wearing masks. It's Wednesday, January 28th. I'm Trinae Nuri, and we're talking politics. Joining me for this conversation is CityCast Philly executive producer Matt Katz. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Trinae.
And also joining us is political contributor Lauren Vitas. Hey, Lauren.
Hey.
Okay, have you both thawed out yet, or have you eaten all your snacks?
I'm on my last 2 eggs, so it's getting dire.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Nobody lost power, though, right? I mean, everybody's good in that regard?
Yeah.
Yeah. I still got Cheez-Its, those like everything seasoned pretzels, and I got some orange juice in the fridge. That's a great meal.
Girl dinner.
How do your streets look? How did the city do in terms of clearing the snow?
Yeah, I mean, I live on a pretty major north-south numbered street, so my street looks great. The sidewalks are very hit or miss. But yeah, I mean, I just think the problem is it's so cold that it's like really hard to get that like last layer up. But right. I haven't seen too much complaining. So I think the Parker administration may have passed this particular test with flying colors, but we'll see once we get past the midweek part.
Yeah, I'm on what they call a tertiary street. So like one of the small side streets. And I did see a plow a couple of times on Sunday, which was great. But I just want to shout out my neighbor who he was literally shoveling all day Sunday. He was maintaining the accumulating snow on the ground. And not just like, he's like my next door neighbor on my right side. He was doing it for the entire block.
Wow.
Hero.
And this was heavy snow.
Yes. And so I am going to make him like a little basket for their family of like goodies, because I just want to say thank you so much for doing that.
Philadelphia, best people in the world.
Absolutely.
I'll shout out my neighbor Nick, who was shoveling, at the corners to get into the street. Those can get blocked up because it's like technically not anybody's like front of their house. So he was doing those corners so you could cross the street. So yeah, appreciate him. And I also had a plow come down my block. But it's funny, Lauren, you said you haven't heard complaints. I mean, this goes to our like social media bubble and how like our assessment of the city's performance in a situation like this can be so anecdotal, because I did see complaints. I saw complaints. I didn't get a plow. This is the worst response I've seen from the city ever in a snowstorm. Yeah, I had a Uber driver yesterday who said that even the main streets in Center City weren't plowed properly. I mean, I know someone on a small block who said she'd seen 0 plows on her street as of Tuesday. And then like walking around is pretty terrible. At Rittenhouse Square on Tuesday morning, you had to like trudge through snow just to get from the sidewalk into the crosswalk, which is real pain in the ass. And that's like the middle of the city. But, I'm not sure if the city can really do anything about that, right? The snow from the road has to go somewhere, and it can't go on the sidewalk, and it can't go in the middle of the street. So these things are going to happen. I mean, it's going to like end up in a lot of people's minds fall on the mayor as being her fault. But I just do think people's personal lived experience will dictate how they see how the city did and how they assess how the city did with this whole thing.
Right. I mean, I had to walk to Acme on Monday to restock the fridge, and some businesses have been closed since Sunday. They haven't shoveled at all. And so I had that same experience where you're like hopping in like these already pre-made like footprints just to get by. But yeah, like the big question is, where do you put all the snow?
Oh, I mean, people are going to complain about trash pickup being delayed. People are going to complain. I sort of wait for like a base level of fear before I decide that it's like actually a problem. And I don't think we've hit that base level. But I know that I have a lot of friends that work for the city, and they have been working nonstop. So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't give a big shout out to all of the city of Philadelphia employees who have not slept very much over the last couple of days. So thank you, City of Philadelphia employees, for doing a solid job.
Here's my complaint, though. I got a complaint.
Let's go.
So if there is a street around me, or like if my street does not get plowed well enough, I took a picture and I send it to 311. But the issue is, it's like you don't ever get feedback on if they got the complaint or not. So I just feel like it just goes into a server somewhere, and it's just like, well, there it is.
We'll have like a 60 degree day, and then you'll get like an email notification that like your street issue has been resolved, and it like melted naturally.
Totally.
Right. Well, it feels like it's not melting naturally because we're in like so freaking cold.
So cold. Yeah, I have a dog, and like taking him out is like a nightmare too, because there's like rock salt everywhere, and like this poor dog is like he's like limping back, to the house because he won't wear those dumb shoes, and it's just
I was just about to say, don't you put little
he doesn't
on him?
It's a foreign concept. Footwear is a foreign concept to him, so I am very much looking forward to. I love the snow, but after like the first 24 hours, I just want it gone. So
yeah, same.
I should point out there's like a database that the city has where you can find out how recently your street was plowed. Streetsmartphl.phila.gov. It's pretty cool. It says if it's been treated less than 6 hours ago, more than 12 hours ago. And as I was looking at it the day after the storm, it seemed like most of the city at least had one run through. And the city, by the way, has 600 pieces of equipment for this operation, according to the Inquirer. And as you mentioned, Lauren, are these employees who've been working nonstop. There's 1,000 of them. So yes, I second your appreciation for those folks.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what we all saw really this weekend. Tensions over immigration enforcement really have just grown after federal agents shot and killed Alex Preddy, a 37-year-old nurse in Minneapolis on Saturday. This is marking the second fatal shooting by federal officers this month. This sparked continued outrage across the country. Lauren, Mayor Parker hasn't spoken out about this particular incident, about really ICE at all. But council is kind of stepping in and is expected to do something this week when it comes to ICE.
Correct. I think, we've sort of talked about this before, where the mayor's strategy seems to be just to kind of try to keep her head down and not draw the attention of the administration. But I think, as you noted, with the escalations in violence, in public violence, because we know a lot of stuff's been happening behind the scenes that I'm sure we don't even know about. Like, so we have a couple of council members stepping up who are looking to introduce legislation, which they have sort of limited authority of what they can do here, right? Because this is a federal agency. We can't just ban ICE, right? Like that's not how this works. But what I think they're trying to do is target the things that make ICE's presence in a city particularly terrorizing, right? So that's the unmarked vehicles, that's the masks, that's the staging and locations as a show of force. So I think council is trying to do the things that they can do to eliminate or reduce that sort of terror element. I think they're also looking to anything that's the city has done by executive order, right, related to like agreements with ICE. They're looking to codify that into law. So I think, council, this has been an issue that they've been much more public about than the mayor and have been more aggressively outspoken than the mayor. And I think, what you saw this weekend was a tipping point where council just said, look, like we have to do something. We have to provide some sort of comfort to the people in the city that there's leadership here, that we're not going to allow Philadelphia to become another Minneapolis, right? We're not going to have innocent people gunned down in the streets by a federal terror force.
What we know about the legislation, which is supposed to be introduced tomorrow, is that it's a half a dozen bills, and the big pieces of them is that they would ban Philly cops from carrying out federal immigration enforcement, prohibit ICE from concealing their identities with those masks or by covering up their badges, and banning ICE from raiding city-owned property like schools and parks and homeless shelters.
Now, Lauren, help me to understand this. Wouldn't Mayor Parker then have to sign it or not sign it? And so that is basically making a statement right there, either way.
Yeah, so typically once a bill is passed by city council, it heads to the mayor's desk for her signature. And she sort of, any piece of legislation that crosses her desk, she has three options. Number one, she can sign the bill, right? She can say, yep, agreed, or maybe I don't agree, but it had 17 votes. I'm not going to fight it. We'll just sign it into law. She could veto the bill if she's against it. This is a practice we very rarely see used by administrations just because council passes so many bills unanimously. The mayor usually doesn't have enough votes to kind of maintain a veto. So it's usually only used when the mayor is like very strongly against something. And then there's a third option, and this is the most common option when a piece of legislation comes to the mayor's desk that she doesn't agree with or doesn't think is legally sound. She cannot do anything, right? So if the mayor decides not to sign a bill, it will automatically become law in 10 days. This is something that we see a lot of mayors use when they, again, don't necessarily agree with the legislation, but they don't think they have enough votes to sustain a veto. It's just sort of like, I don't like what you guys are doing, but you passed it and whatever. So those are going to be the mayor's options there. I highly doubt we'll see a veto. I think, I think the council hearings on this legislation is going to be just a kettle on an open flame. It's going to be,
meaning a lot of voices from the community members. A lot of voices.
I mean, if you think about it, folks really haven't had a sort of concentrated single point of public expression over what's happening, right? And I think being in it.
You mean even despite having like the protests outside of City Hall
that
we've seen?
I think what your protest is part of, like, it's a way to get your voice heard, but it's not a way to share your story, right?
You can't tell that powerful anecdote of the family member, the neighbor who was ripped apart from his family and deported, right? It'll be an opportunity for the community to vent almost. Even that alone seems like a good thing, a healthy thing.
Yeah, to vent and to just process, right? Like, I think a lot of this is just about processing and, like, having people in power hear you. And, like, I do think that these hearings, and whether this legislation passes or not, I think the hearings in and of themselves are going to be very, very important, both for elected leadership and political leadership to hear from people. But I think it's also going to be important for the communities to finally have a seat at the table to be able to speak directly to people in power about what's happening.
All right. We've got more news after the break. So another thing that kind of stood out in the last couple of days is Mayor Parker's home initiative. She got the bond to get this thing jump-started. Now, just as a kind of catch-up, the home initiative is Mayor Parker's very ambitious idea to build and repair 30,000 homes in the city. It was a lot of pull and tug in the past year or so. But this is a win for her, right?
Yeah, so this is the second time council's had to vote on this bill because they made so many changes to the original sort of plan that they had to reintroduce the funding ordinance, essentially. What this is allows the city to go to the bond market and borrow money. And yeah, Trinae, as you mentioned, there was a lot of push and pull and kind of like the three big areas where there was some debate between the mayor and council. Number one, the total funding amount. How much money is the city going to borrow towards this? Number two, the eligibility requirements in terms of like what income levels would residents need to participate in these various plans. And then the third piece was really council oversight in how is this money getting spent, things like that. So once those issues were resolved, council was able to come back, the bill passed unanimously, and now the mayor can go to market, borrow the money, and start getting to work on these 30,000 units.
And politically, this seemed like a success for the progressive side of council. Like they were the ones that delayed the vote. It was supposed to happen last year. They made some changes to include more low-income residents who might benefit from this. And they seem to me like a little bit newly empowered here as a counter to the mayor and whatever else might come up this year. I mean, there was a big profile of Councilmember Jamie Gauthier in the Inquirer this past weekend. They called her, quote, a counterweight to Parker. So that's something to watch for, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, it comes down to different philosophies, right? There might be two different ways of arriving at like the same goal, and you're seeing two different philosophies come in play. I think at the end of the day, everybody sort of got a little bit of what they wanted, and everybody felt a little disappointed, and that's usually the sign of like a pretty good compromise. So Councilmember Gauthier has been focused on housing since the day she took office, so it's really no surprise that she was a leader on this issue and on pushing back on some of these eligibility requirements.
I don't know. I kind of like having this like robust like conversation about it. Like, it's good. I feel like to talk about these two different or maybe multiple philosophies, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think unfortunately a lot of times we see legislation kind of pass 17-0, and the public hearings feel more like theater than they do an actual like debate or vetting. So I think it's good for democracy. I think it's good for policymaking to have multiple voices at the table. And, tensions can get a little heated because everybody's so confident that their way is the right way. But at the end of the day, like, we're a diverse city with diverse interests, diverse people. And it's really important that we, any bills and resolutions reflect like the fact that there are so many voices that need to be heard and need to be taken care of.
Okay. Well, one of the perspectives is to transform schools that would be closed into housing. Now, let me be honest, okay? The idea of the Bach building, right? And this was like when it first opened. A friend of mine was like, oh, Trinae, like we're going out. We're going to this new bar. It's on the rooftop of an old school. And I was like, excuse me? I pushed back against like stepping foot in that place because I just could not fathom why everyone was so cool with like this once, operating school is now like this, like,
yeah, you're like, I already graduated. I'm not going to hang out there, right?
Or does it feel like more like too like late stage capitalist, right? Where we've transformed like these houses of public education into like clubs, right?
Totally.
Well, yeah, it's like it just felt kind of icky to me. Mm-hmm. But shout out to Bach though, because like I actually like their programming and so
thoughtful.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I can't stress enough how. So that's Scout Ltd. that does that, and they recently took over some of the old arts buildings.
University
they are
of the Arts. Yep.
So thoughtful and mindful about the history of the spaces that they're taking over, and I think there's very few folks who do adaptive reuse as respectfully. And with a community focused mindset as Scout does. So huge shout out to those guys.
And the reason why this question is relevant is because last week, school district announced a major reconfiguration of the district. I've got 2 kids in the public schools, and their schools were affected, but not immediately. But we didn't know that at the time, and it was. I mean, the text chains were going off because nobody knew what was happening. It was a earthquake in communities across the city because they announced that they are going to close 20 schools, co-locate 6 other schools, do a bunch of grade restructuring where they're moving some grades out of a school into another school, that kind of thing, and then do a bunch of renovations. And this is all because the population of children in the city has changed. They're in different neighborhoods, different numbers, different places. Some schools are overcrowded. Other schools are underpopulated. And some buildings are just so obsolete. There should not be kids or human beings in there at all. So that's why they announced this facilities plan, which they've been talking about for a while. They finally released it last week. The school board still has to approve it. So it is just a proposal as of now. And all I saw was opposition, right? Because
people are so connected to their schools. They have memories. So many Philadelphians who've been lifelong Philadelphians, like their school buildings no longer exist. And I feel like that's a tragedy.
Or could no longer exist if the school board approves the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to say that Philadelphians love change as long as everything remains exactly the same. And I think that is true for so many issues. But I think, Trinae, to your point, there's like a deep emotional connection, right, to schools in the city. When you meet somebody from Philly and you ask what neighborhood they're from, and then it's like, what school did you go to, right? It's like, it is it's part of the 3 questions that every Philadelphian asks every other Philadelphian. And, as tough as change can be, it is, in this case, it is needed for a variety of reasons. And I'm not saying that the plan is right, but like the status quo is unacceptable for kids in the city. They are in sick buildings. You look at Northeast High School, absolutely bursting at the seams. We've had crazy population shifts throughout the city. We've had neighborhoods who've lost a lot of kids. We have the advent of cyber charters. We have kids who aren't even like going to school buildings anymore. So enrollment in the district is down 17,000 students over the last couple of years. So they do need to do some like restructuring here, both for the public health of kids who are in buildings they shouldn't be in, as well as for the educational and just like they're in overcrowded learning situations. It's not good. I will say that this is a proposal, right? They had a similar plan that went out, I want to say it was in 2010, and they tried to close my local neighborhood school, and we pushed back, and we showed them that the data they were relying on wasn't right, and that our neighborhood was growing, and that more parents wanted public education opportunities. And we were able to get our school to stay open, and it is absolutely thriving, right?
Shout out to Edwin Stanton, right?
Edwin Stanton. I saw Stanton on the list and I freaked out, but it was the John Stanton. I was like, ready to get my signs out of the closet again. But yeah, no, I think this is going to have to be like an important dialogue between parents and the district, and folks are going to need time to prepare, right? This isn't going to happen overnight, but I think if we want to see our public education system not only survive but thrive, a lot of the changes that are proposed are going to need to happen in some form or the other. They just need to be done respectfully. They need to be done transparently. And they need to be done with the buy-in of the parents, right? Like this can't just be something force-fed down people's throats. They have to be part of the conversation and part of the plan.
How do you expect city council to take this up? I mean, I saw Councilmember Isaiah Thomas, who's very involved in school issues. He was critical. Other council members who have schools in their districts that are affected by this appear to be concerned. Will council have any influence? Are they going to do their own hearings and the school board has their own hearings? Like, how is this going to play out like politically?
Yeah, I mean, dueling hearings is very likely, but unlike the school district, the school board, they don't have voting power on what buildings would get to stay or close. They can try to influence. Keep in mind, this is going to be happening at the same time the city budget process is happening. The school district has to appear before city council to talk about their budget needs. So this is just the start of this, right? This is not going to be something that's resolved in the next 12 weeks. This is going to be the start of a long public dialogue about these proposals. I think, to your point, Trinae, that we were talking about before, what happens with these buildings that they want to close? That to me is almost kind of like a separate issue down the line. But unless they have a thoughtful plan of what's going to happen to these buildings, like folks don't want an empty, vibrant school turning into an empty, dilapidated building in their neighborhood that just sits there, right? So I think that the sort of like short-term, midterm, long-term plans for these buildings are going to have to be something that the district is able to address in order to get people comfortable with any sort of sign-off on closure.
And it's not just the Bach. It was the former school. It's called the Mural Lofts on the corner of Broad and Spring Garden. And this used to be called the Thaddeus Stevens School of Practice. Now apartments, now 1 to 2 bedrooms, 1 to 2 baths, rent ranging from $1,600 to $2,800.
Yeah, I mean, so like that building, that school closed like what, 20 years ago? Like a while. Yeah. Anyway, they have to have like some plan, right? We can't just be like holding on to this property and letting it sit there and deteriorate. And whether that is figuring out like, do these become community spaces? Do these become housing? We need so much housing. Do these become, is the Bach model one that we can replicate at other places where they become sort of like a commercial space for makers and artists and community members who want to open up a small business in their neighborhood? Like, these are all really important questions. And this is not going to be, these are not questions that are going to be resolved overnight.
And I imagine things will shift a little bit. They'll make a couple of, if they approve this in general, they might make some tweaks, the school board?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if the last time we went through this shows anything, it's that this is a proposal, right? And they will hear testimony and they will hear from activists and parents and things like that. But it is something that we have past precedent that they do make changes to the plan. No, it's a proposal. Nothing's going to be a perfect first draft.
All right. Lauren, Matt, thanks so much for chatting with me this week on our political news roundup.
Thank you for having me.
See you guys.
That's all for us today here on CityCast Philly. Let us know what you think about this episode. Also, think about sharing this with a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter to learn more about what else Philly is talking about. And don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.
Schools converting into apartments gives a whole new meaning to the word homeroom. Thank you very much. Sinead didn't even... She didn't even crack a smile. She gave me nothing on that.
I'm against it.